Welcome to Shedding Shackles. Today's topic is stress relief in God's light. And now, here's your Shedding Shackles host, Roland Trujillo.
Today I want to talk about stress. The greatest teacher who ever lived, who walked upon the shores of Galilee, told us many things about how to conquer stress. And he was the greatest stress conqueror who ever lived. Do you realize that the pressures that he underwent, the temptations that he experienced when he was 40 days in the wilderness, do you realize that these are all stresses? People mocked him, doubted him, scorned him. They tried to kill him. Then he was tortured. And you know what happened at the end of his earthly life before he rose from the dead. You know what they did to him. Those were all stresses. And he overcame them all. Then how did he overcome them all? He didn't react to them. Did they cause him pain? Yes. Discomfort? Yes. Did he react to them? He did not. He did what he was supposed to do, and he overlooked the stresses, and he spoke up. Yes, he spoke up. So then what did he do? He exhibited patience, self-control, and he also brought forth the truth. Do you see? So he did his Father's will, and his Father's will was that he tell us about the kingdom of God. Christ came to tell us that the kingdom of God had come. The kingdom of God. Now, we who are born to this lowly realm, but yet with the potential of something more, we are born to wrong authorities. Our parents were wrong authorities. Yes, maybe they did the best they could, but they messed up. They were kind of like wrong authorities. Yeah, they got some things right, but then when they said things, they were impatient or they were angry. Or mostly they just did to you and said to you and taught you and pressured you and were worried about the same things that was done to them. And so the transfer occurred. They were programmed when they were little children. Parent got angry, and the little child reacted to the anger, and the scene was imprinted, and soon that scene was in the child's mind. And then when you came along, then you did something, and it brought back the memory of that, and it caused them a great pain, a great discomfort. And then they ended up overreacting to what you did, just as their parents had overreacted. So they just passed on the wrong. And so to that extent, they were wrong authorities. And then you look around, you see all kinds of wrong authorities. And what do you do about it? Well, you realize that they can't help themselves. And you don't hate them. See? That's your number one line of defense. Don't hate them. See, there are a lot of different responses to wrong authority. When you were a child, you experienced them all. When you were a little kid, you were upset. You were confused. You were angry. You were outraged. You were hurt. You were scared. You were terrified. Then you were resentful. See? Well, do you see all of those reactions is what caused all of the error to get inside of you? You reacted with all of those, and you're continuing to react now the same as you did when you were a little child. So how do you then begin to conquer stress? Well, you have to stop reacting. And what's the first thing that you can give up? Yes, You do have control over it. You may not have much control over your body now, the way your heart pounds and your knees knock when you have to face some authority like your kid's teacher or someone who looks like an authority from your past. You can't help getting angry right now. Maybe your body, your blood pressure goes up and your tummy aches and you get tense when there are stresses around you. Unfortunately, you've been conditioned that way. But that can be overcome. But what's the very first thing that you must overcome if you want to overcome all the others? The very first thing you must overcome if you want to overcome all of the other stresses. The very first thing is resentment. Remember a long time ago when you were a little child, you could do one thing and then another, and then another and another. And you know what they call that now? They call it, what do they call it? Hyperactivity or something like that. Well, some kids are hyperactive, but others, they just go from one thing to another. It's perfectly natural. You do this for a few minutes and then something else, and you do this for a minute, and then you do that, and you do one thing, and then suddenly you go ask a question, and then you rush away and do something else. That's perfectly natural. That's the way I am. I'm 70 years old, and that's the way I am. I do a little this and a little that. When I'm no longer interested in it, I put it down and I do something else. That's the natural way. Free, unencumbered. See, so that's what you must find. Because when you're in that state of being unencumbered, and you're not lost in something, and you're not immersed in something, and you're not all emotional, then it's easier to do reality checks. You get tense when there are stresses around you. Unfortunately, you've been conditioned that way. But that can be overcome. But what's the very first thing that you must overcome if you want to overcome all the others? The very first thing you must overcome if you want to overcome all of the other stresses. The very first thing is resentment and hatred and judgment. You see, Christ, when he looked at people, he saw that they were doing someone else's will. He saw that they were programmed. He saw that they were in error, and they were emotionally defending some error that had been implanted. He saw that they weren't really in charge of their own life. They were doing someone else's will, definitely not God's will. See, you're either doing God's will or you're doing someone else's will. And they were doing someone else's will. So he saw that. So he didn't hate the person. Do you understand that? All the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the doubters and the mockers and the scorners and those who turned upon him and those who betrayed him, he didn't hate them. He simply saw that, in a sense, they couldn't help themselves. So he didn't hate them. But yet, what did he do? He spoke the truth. And why did he speak the truth? And he spoke the truth with love, in other words, without resentment. And why did he do that? So that they might hear it. And perhaps upon hearing it, they might have a change of heart. And if they have a change of heart, they might be sorry for the wrong that had been coming through them. And they might be sorry for their resentments and their angers toward other people and let them go. And then they might get even closer to God's light, and they might get closer to the kingdom of God. Do you understand? So he represented a good order, not wrong authorities, not impatient authorities, not letter of the law authorities, not confusing authorities, not pressuring authorities. He represented a good authority. He represented the Father, the good Father. And he represented the good Father by not hating people and by speaking the truth. Because when he spoke the truth, something good was carried with the truth. You see, like radio, if you turn your radio on, it's an amazing thing, really. You turn the radio on in your car, for example, then how is it that something is coming through the air? Some invisible waves are coming, and your radio somehow translates those invisible waves into sound. It's a really amazing thing. Well, when Christ spoke, his words, his breath, the expression on his face had a message. It carried behind it something from the good realm. Something was imparted to his words that when people heard them, they might awaken upon hearing what he said. See, different people can say things, and the effect of what they say can be totally different, can't it? One person can call you a jerk, and they say it in a mean, hateful way or a condescending way, and it makes you angry. Another person can say, "Hey, you jerk, what are you doing? That's a dumb thing to do. Knock it off." And you see that they don't hate you, they don't resent you, they're just trying to help you. And so it has a totally different effect. Well, you can imagine the effect that his words could have upon people, yes, but they had to be receptive. See, like your radio in your car, it has to be tuned to the right station in order to receive the message from that station. He was a good representative of the Father. He told of the kingdom of God. He announced the kingdom of God. And he said that in order to enter the kingdom of God, you have to be reborn. You have to find a new way of doing things. Look, the old way. What was the old way? And you couldn't help it. You were only a little child when it all began. The old way was getting angry, getting upset, getting your feelings hurt, being scared, being terrified, going along to get along, being nervous, being afraid, being resentful, getting mad at people, getting your feelings hurt, being jealous of other people, and so on and so forth. That was the old way. Now, there has to be a new way. And what's the new way? Not getting angry, not getting resentful, not hating people, not getting your feelings hurt, not being scared by them, not being terrified by them. See, that's the new way. So how do you do this new way? Well, you have to stop reacting. And let's go back to what I said earlier. I said the first thing you have to let go of is resentment. Did you know that my most popular book is The Myths and Mysteries of Marriage? A spiritual and practical look at relationships. My favorite chapter is How to Forgive and Forget. The Myths and Mysteries of Marriage. Check it out at Amazon.com or SheddingShackles.com.
Shedding Shackles provides answers for the issues that are closest to you. Do you have a comment or a question? If so, email Roland at roland@SheddingShackles.com. That's roland@SheddingShackles.com. Or call the listener call-in line at 510-455-8851. That's 510-455-8851.
Are you experiencing stress, anxiety, or unhappiness? Do you feel weighed down by the past? Stay tuned for a special message from Roland Trujillo, host of the Shedding Shackles radio program. For over 25 years, Roland Trujillo has been helping people shed the shackles of unhappy memories, consisting of upset, hurt feelings,